Hi, and welcome everybody to our brand new podcast, Beyond the Dirt. My name is Hunter Slifka, and this is Neil Schaefer, and we just decided we wanted to start this podcast up here in Cresco, Iowa. We work at a soil and water district, and we just wanted to find a way to reach out to our farmers and landowners and provide another option as far as outreach to help get out that information on programs, what we do here, what's going on at the office, and just give us a chance to kind of sit down and chat about what we got going up here in Howard County. And so this is episode number one, our first crack at doing podcasts here. And I was going to turn it over to Neil Schaefer right away and kind of let him take the show and talk about what got him here and how he ended up here in Howard County and in this position.
Thanks, Hunter. It's kind of a random thing. I was dairy farming with my parents just west of Cresco here in Howard County. I've always been a lifelong member, active in some of the organizations locally, and there was a position open here at the Soil and Water Conservation District, and they were kind of recruiting people, and I submitted my name, and here I am, 21 years later. So how it was kind of cool because at the beginning, all I was doing was promoting CRP buffer strips, and um, they had received a grant from the Turkey River Pheasants Forever, and which is kind of cool because Hunter and I are both active in that now, and I was active right from the beginning since they were kind of one of my funding sources, and it was kind of neat. Got a lot of on the job training and went right to work working on CRP buffer strips, and it was a lot of renewals. We had a lot of renewals, and at that time they had a backlog of status reviews that had to be done. So I went out checking the quality of the buffer strips, see if there was any trees or anything on them like that. So actually, it was pretty neat getting paid to go out and look at nature and work on some of that.
Awesome, yeah. And we'll circle back to a lot of those things that he hit on also. But like I mentioned before, my name's Hunter. I'm also from the Cresco area. And Neil talked about how he was recruited to work here. I was recruited as well by Neil, just kind of by an accident. I wanted to go to school for conservation, but I didn't really know what aspect of it I wanted to do. And I kind of thought about DNR, and that's what we get perceived a lot is they think we're DNR or work for the DNR. We don't. We actually get to work with private landowners and different things. And so Neil kind of cornered me one day and had me come on in and do some job shadowing and volunteer. Then one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I was working full time, temporary position here at the Soil and Water District while I was going to school at Upper Iowa, and eventually that led into a complete full time position, and now we're both sitting here as watershed project coordinators. So we each have a watershed in the county that we work on, as well as do a lot more work outside the watersheds in the whole county area. And I think that's really where it gets us back to is yeah, we're locally um, grown people, but at the same time we're community members and a part of a lot of different organizations. Neil mentioned his Pheasants Forever organization. We're both on that board right now, and we both play a very important role. Neil's president, and then I'm the banquet chairman, and so a lot of the things that we have to do with that committee is trying to raise money for land acquisitions and being able to do different events through the year. And so we actually got one coming up here soon as our youth pheasant hunting. So we get a few youth around. We shoot some clays. We take them out on a local landowner's property. They get some shooting in. We've so far been 100%. Everyone's gotten a bird every year we've gone out, which is pretty lucky. Then we are able to get them back and get their hands dirty and clean some birds and really show them how it's done. And so just being able to give back to the organizations and develop that trust with the landowners is really, really important, and being able to work with those guys. And Neil's been here for 20 years, and over 20 years now, and he's seeing the cycles change, and they're changing every single day, every single year. But what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen since you've started here over 20 years ago?
Well, first off, when I first started, there was only four of us in the office, and we've had a high point of at least 11 here a couple years ago when we had a couple extra summer help. But it's one of those things. The energy and it's just kind of a snowball effect. Once you start getting more practices and then more programs, I remember back in Howard County's always been a big leader in buffer strips and CRP. We were usually ranked out in the top 5 in the state for the number of contracts, not the number of acres, but the number of contracts. I've always coined. I thought I coined the phrase. I'm sure I heard it somewhere, but farm the best and buffer the rest. I'm a farmer. Grew up on farm. Ag was my background, so I understand we got to feed the world too, and make our economies grow and things like that. But there's sensitive areas on fields. There's low production areas on fields. So that's one thing. As far as finding areas for CRP, one of the technologies that have come along. I know a lot of times in the fall, farmers will come in with their monitor maps for their yield, and we're going to find these areas of the field where there's a really low return on investment. And the input costs are the same on an area that's not producing as it is on a producing area. So why not put some of those gravel knolls or wet spots or areas that wash out and gullies? I mean, gosh, why are we farming with gullies when we have such awesome programs? So that's always been kind of a nice thing. Some of the technology that farmers have had to help that. Another thing, what was a big push in the county was probably, I'd say 15 years ago, the CSP program, Conservation Security Program, Conservation Stewardship Program. Howard County, I think they had 6 or 8 watersheds in the state of Iowa that were selected. We just happened to get 2 of them. One was the Turkey River, and the other one was the Wapsipinicon, which ended up being about 2/3 of the county. So that was a big, I would say, a big turning point, and to where we really started to be more innovative with our farmers here in Howard County. Because I remember we hosted meetings in Riceville and Elma and Lime Springs and Cresco, really working the roads to get people in to talk about this new conservation program. And it was kind of neat because one of the aspects of the program was, yeah, it's a program for working ground, corn and soybeans, but you have to take it up to the next level. You have to have some habitat. You had to do this and that, and it was kind of neat because a lot of these fields. I mean, it's easy to put a buffer strip along a wetland or a stream or something like that, but here we've got these 160-acre flat fields with fence row to fence row crop. So we needed some habitat aspect, and there wasn't really anything. And then all of a sudden we got this CP33. It's called a quail buffer, and they only were using it in southern Iowa where more quail were, and they hadn't used all the acres up. I think there was 800 acres left that year. And so here we got a memo. They opened it up statewide, and we kind of studied up on how it worked. And you just had to put a strip along a field border, 30 foot wide up to 120 foot wide. Well, there we had it. We had our habitat. It was for upland birds. And so we'd have a meeting with them about a contract doing their CSP. They'd come over and we'd sign them up for one of those. And at the end of the year, Howard County had consumed about 700 of those 800 acres that were left in the state. And I know our CD at the time, she was saying, how in the world did that happen? I said, we had a lot of interest in the CSP program. And since then, we've been kind of a leader in that. And like I said, it kind of turned the corner to where we started having this interaction with our farmers. And, when you're sitting down at least twice a year, or maybe 3 times a year, visiting about this stuff, well, then they'll say, oh, wait a minute, on this other farm, I've got these gullies, or here I've got this gravelly knoll that's not producing. So I think a big part of it is the communications. CSP was a big driver in that, and just changing our attitude of where people came for problem solving to where we came to help solve them and have that more open conversation.
And that was a perfect segue. It's like you read the script and knew exactly what we wanted to talk about, but some of you might not even understand what we really do here in Howard County at our Soil and Water District and our NRCS office, FSA, and all the other beautiful acronyms that we have in our office. But our building is made up of 2 main agencies, NRCS and FSA, and we're basically here to serve our local landowners and farmers and help them enroll into different government programs, whether it's receiving cost share or not, certifying all their crop acres and different things. And I'm gonna let it go to Neil again, the veteran, and kind of explain our structure of our office on both sides, and
Sure.
and then we can dive into the programs after that, because that could be a whole 6-hour speech after that. But We'll give them the brief one.
Yeah. Well, honestly, before I came to work here, I had no real clue on exactly what all went on.
I don't know if anyone does.
When at that time we would come in, we had to have a conservation plan on our farm. I know we signed up for the program. We certified our acres each year. But once you got here, I kind of started understanding the mechanisms and who was working and whose job it was. So, like Hunter said, we've got the USDA building, and we've got on one side of the building is NRCS, which is the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which also houses the Howard Soil and Water Conservation District and any Department of Agriculture of Iowa employees. And then on the other side of the building, we've got the Farm Service Agency. And what they do is they keep track of all the commodity acres. So every spring, after corn planting's done, bean planting, you come in and certify this farm. I planted corn, planted soybeans. It's a way the government kind of keeps track of how much food we're going to be producing in the year. But it also makes the farmer eligible for the FSA programs, which are a commodity program paid on acres of corn and soybeans. But that is a direct correlation to what we do, because on our side of the office, we are they're called the eligibility for conservation compliance. We make sure that farmers are following the highly erodible land, the HEL, or NHEL, non-highly erodible. The HEL is the one that we're more concerned about, is the steep land, to make sure that they have the correct rotations, not doing too much tillage, because our goal, which is a crazy goal anyway, is to keep the soil loss down to 5 tons a year. Now, is 5 tons a year acceptable? I don't think so. It drives me crazy.
We could have that argument.
Oh
all
man,
day long.
I would love to get things way below that. I think we're headed that way with some of the programs we're doing now. But anyway, so then we do that. We also help farmers with we're the side of the building that does the technical aspect of like CRP. So like the waterway surveys, designs, through whether it's through the EQIP program or the CRP program or the IFIP program or the alphabet soup of programs that we is our job to kind of dig through. So then as far as staff, the person that leads the FSA office is called a CED, and the person that runs or manages the NRCS office is a federal employee also, who is a DC district conservationist. CED, conservation. Man, I tell you,
Director.
exactly. There we go. Conservation Executive Director.
Even we
Committee.
get lost in the alphabet soup every
Man.
once in a while. I mean, even some
Yeah.
of these programs like CSP, it's even changed the name since the beginning of
It's
time.
the same acronym, but they just changed the name. It was Conservation Stewardship Program. Now it's Conservation Security Program, or vice versa.
Vice versa.
It's vice. See, I get it wrong every time. I should just go with security first.
If they could just make this easier, and I mean, even
Yeah.
us working here, and Neil's been here for 20 years, and I've been here for 8 years, you still can't remember them all. You get lost in them, and then they try to expect the farmers to know them or understand them, and it's just it can
Well,
be a hoopla sometimes.
We had a summer intern. We hosted an event for all the summer interns in Northeast Iowa. And one of the parts of the program I put on was I'm going to make a list of all the alphabet soup of programs and different things that we have. And I was on my second page of acronyms, and then I started repeating some of the same ones, and it was different. And I said, all right, that's enough. So, but even that, to figure out how each person gets to where they're at and who funds them and what agencies they report to. On the NRCS side, the FSA side, they're pretty all in the same boat as far as who their employer is and everything. But on our side, you could have a state employee who's paid by the state of Iowa Agriculture Department. You could have a soil and water conservation district person that's paid by the district. You've got the feds who are paid by the USDA. But then it gets more complicated as you go into it. Now, Hunter's Watershed Project, he's a WQI, which is Water Quality Initiative program. I, on the other hand, am funded, ironically, all the way back up to the EPA. So the EPA has a Section 319 water division that money is sent to the Iowa DNR, which also has a section that's called Iowa DNR Section 319 Water Bureau. And then they work hand in hand with the Iowa Department of Agriculture, and then they ship that money to the district. So that's how I get my money for my position and some of the practices that I'm involved with. So yeah, it's I guess it's those. I always say we're kind of the buffer between the farmer and the agencies because there's so much to try to learn and to understand. And like I said, we've got manuals and everything. Sometimes we got to revert back to what some of this stuff is. But yeah, it works great. I must say, Howard County, we have a fantastic team here on the NRCS side, as we do on the farm service side. We get along just swell. And I think that's our job. I mean, it benefits no one to have some competition or in a negative way or, hinder each other's progress because we're all here to serve the farmer. It's right in our sign out front, Farm Service Agency. I mean, we're here to serve the farmer. We're here to navigate the programs. We call them resource concerns. So if somebody comes in and they've got a gully in the field, well, that's a resource concern. So it's our job. We go out, we assess the field, then we survey it, then we get a design, then we try to find out what program best fits it. And we've got an application for every program. So sometimes we have people sign a couple applications, one for this pot and one for this pot, because we never know for sure until right up to the end when we submit it where we're going to go with it. But yeah, I mean, I've been here 21 years and it's just flown like that. But I find it challenging. I find it very interesting. It's kind of like a puzzle. Every day we've got pieces of puzzle. We're trying to put them together. You've got different individuals. Farmers are very individualistic. You're not going to find a wider range of individuals than farmers to work with in the first place. And we've got all these different programs. We've got all these concerns. We've got all the people that move the pieces that are out of our control. And to bring all that together. So honestly, it's amazing we get anything done, but we do.
You make that puzzle analogy, and we probably should just make a puzzle. You got the farmer, you got the contractor, you got the resource concern, you got the different programs, the different agencies. If you can put them all together, it just look like one great big beautiful picture with the sun shining down and everything gleaming, and everything's all good and dandy in the end. But definitely, you got to get down in the trenches some days and piece it all together and figure it out, and that's what makes this job so fun. And we always say every single day is different. You never know what you're gonna come across, and so that's what makes it so enjoyable and so challenging too. I mean, I don't know too many people that just like sitting at an industrial line every day, plugging one thing at a time and just sitting there for 8-10 hours and then coming back the next day and doing the exact same thing, and come back the next day and do the exact same thing, and then after 20 years you got a little bit of a pension or whatever. But this is so much more enjoyable and so much more fun. I mean, we always joke that we work hard and play harder. I mean, anytime we come out, we like to joke around. We're from the government. We're here to help you, and most of the farmers get it and laugh with us. But I mean, every once in a while you get a couple that don't know if we're joking or serious.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, and Neil kind of alluded to it, is no one really kind of knows what we do here or that we even exist at times. And I was the same way when I was going through high school, and even if I weren't working here in college, I probably still wouldn't understand what truly goes on here. And it services of 98% of the state of Iowa, but yet not that many people know about it. And so we get confused with the DNR sometimes, which the DNR does great work. We partner with them on a lot of different projects, whether it's the fisheries or the timber stuff or the wildlife aspect of it. So they're definitely a great tool in our toolbox, but we're doing our bestest to make sure that they understand that we're a soil and water district, conservation office, whatever, and not the DNR, and so that they understand that they can come to us as far as technical support, program support, hopefully can find some cost share here and there to help out with some projects, and different things like that, which I think that could be a whole episode on itself as far as projects and the cost share stuff. But today I think we want to really dive into the cover crop stuff, and I know we can still...
I do have to... there's one piece of the puzzle that I would be remiss if I didn't leave it out. We have two committees also that it's kind of cool because the FSA county committee is what they call it. Those individuals are elected by producers within the county. So if you're a farmer, you have a farm number, farm producer, they have elections, they're nominated, and they have a governing board of, I believe it's five individuals. And and then on the Water Conservation District side, we have 5 commissioners who are elected by the entire county. So this fall, when you go to the ballot box, we're going to have 2 of our commissioners are up for election, and they run for a 4-year term. And I cannot tell you, we have got an amazing committee, both on the FSA side and on the Soil and Water District side. Very supportive of what we do. I know once in a while I'll get called into a monthly meeting of the county committee to kind of explain maybe what was going on with one of the farmers contracts or something. They're very open, very receptive to what we're doing and things. And the Soil and Water Conservation District are amazingly supportive. Howard County has had a watershed project in this county consistently since the late 90s. And it started out with the Beock Creek project, a trout stream. And, we've had, before David Puffer and I both had watershed projects at the same time. I was up in the Staff and Beaver watershed projects up in the northwest part of the county. And then Dave was doing the Lake Hendricks project. Now I have the Silver Creek project, a tributary in the upper Iowa. Hunter's leading up the headwaters of the Turkey River. So, but yeah, can't leave them out. That is, they're kind of the people that put their stamp of approval on what we do. So, one more piece of that puzzle.
And when you say stamp of approval, they literally are
They
approving
are.
them.
They do.
So-
They do. We used to have little stampers, but can't do the stampers anymore. So they get hand cramps sometimes right now, signing all the paperwork we got.
Yeah,
But
and they're just as awesome as all our farmers. I mean, there's a lot of times where we're meeting them on the gravel road halfway in between and jump out on sign some stuff on the hood of the truck or whatever it may be. And so I don't know if you always find that kind of a trust or agreement between everyone in every county, but we definitely have that here. So and speaking of our chairman and talking about cover crops, we're flying on cover crops like madmen right now, and our chairman actually works at one of our co-ops, and I wish I could figure out how to put the picture on here, but we even got a picture of our chairman standing up on the airplane, filling the airplane up with some more cover crop seed. And so we're going hot and heavy right now with the cover crops. I would say a little over 5 years ago, we had next to nothing of cover crops, and now we have over 30,000 acres of cover crops, and it's really a testament to our farmers jumping on the bandwagon, making it work, figuring out different things. Not every year is all peaches and cream and work out perfectly. And with our can be late springs, early falls, early frost over. We really got to find some different species that work out there. We got to find the best management part of it, and the best time of application and all that sort of thing. And so, and especially this last year, I mean, 2 years ago we had most of our crops in before May, and this year we didn't have hardly anything in come May. And so that really made it difficult as far as the cold temps getting the cover crop killed off, and some people got a little bit gun shy as far as how much material was out there and biomass and stuff. And so then we kind of went to work on our end as far as trying to do some research and figure out a different mix, different seeding date, application method, and stuff that would work a little bit better if we were to run in that same problem per se as a late spring, cold temps, the herbicide not wanting to work. Versus those years that are just glamorous where we have the 50, 60 degree Aprils and able to kill it off instantly and then plant in a few days after, whatever. So we've definitely ran into some troubles, but nonetheless, there's a lot of good things out there to talk about. And I mean, having over 30,000 acres countywide is quite impressive. And then I'll pass the mic and let Neil talk about the Golden Project in Silver Creek and what they got going, because that's got to be something that leads this nation. I mean, as far as percentage of row crop acres being covered in cover crop, and how much green you see out there in the soil, and the even the environment benefits with that much living mass out there during times where you normally don't see something.
boy, I tell you what, you talk about a huge revolution. I mean, Howard County is the
Green
home.
revolution.
Yep, we of course Howard County is the home of Norman Borlaug, which is another board I serve on too. But Norman Borlaug, he had the Green Revolution, and I tell you what, it truly is. My watershed project, the current one here for Silver Creek, I'm in my 13th year of it, and when I set up my program, I wrote my watershed management plan, set up the parameters of everything. We didn't even mention cover crop. It It didn't even come into play. I mean, I don't even remember people doing cover crop. But in 2013, we had a very wet year. Was it 13? I think it was 13. 13, 14. Anyway, we had a super wet year, prevent plant
That's
year.
a century ago now.
Yeah, he was still in grade school, I think. But anyway, it was a prevent plant year, so it was so wet here in that spring, whatever year it was, we couldn't plant. So with the FSA side, we had a program where it was a disaster payment. But on our side, we're like, oh my gosh, we got all this land that's just laying idle, which is not good. If you leave land lay too long, it almost becomes sterile. You have to have some green. I mean, honestly, corn and soybeans is only there from mid-May until, look, it's already come to its end of its life cycle in September. So you got all those other months where there's nothing growing. Well, lo and behold, we started doing the cover crop, and it was like, what on earth? People are planting radish, and these radish are like 2 feet long and roots, and we were putting them on super early. We were doing it in July because there was nothing out there. But anyway, then like I said, with the CSP program, one of the aspects was try out cover crops. So we had people dabbling in it. They'd do 50 acres or maybe 1 year of their contract, and then we're like, well, how are we going to get it on? And they were like, airplanes. What are you talking about? We're not using air. How are we going to do that? Well, that's how they were doing it. Hunter and I, we started going to a lot of field days, and soil health came into play. That's going to be a whole nother subject. We're going to just talk about soil health one day. But so the whole cover crop thing, it just started growing. And then in my watershed, the Silver Creek watershed, we had an opportunity to write for a special pot of EQIP money. And the goal was we wanted some money for doing stream bank projects, because it's a very high priced practice. It was always, previous to what we did now, it was a 50%. Well, if you got a $50,000 practice and you're going out to a farmer and ask him, hey, you got to put $25,000 into this. I mean, it's a noble cause, but still, farmers have to have that return on investment, and it wasn't quite there. Well, anyway, we got this Dulce money, and lo and behold, we got I think it was close to $1 million. It was a crazy amount of money. Well, then they sent the practice list, and on the practice list here, they got cover crops. And they had a really nice payout per acre, and up to a 5-year contract. So, knowing me, I start going door to door, talking to farmers, and we had some real leaders in the watershed that had been doing some cover crop, and man, we latched onto that, and instantly I had, I think, 15 contracts. With that, we had 7 stream bank projects, and here we had, we consumed almost $1 million of that dollars, just under $1 million. So that kind of set the stage, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So then we were like, okay, the state of Iowa started cost sharing 160 acres at a time, and so we started getting a few more people, which was kind of a nice introduction. Start them out with the state cost share. It's a 1-year time, low commitment, easy program. And so then we got a bunch of people interested in that. Well, then we're like, well, shoot, we use the Dulce EQIP. Why don't we use the regular EQIP? So then we started using the regular, and we got more people signed up. Well, then here comes Hunter. Hunter's a hell of a guy running these programs, and he, he's like, well, heck, we can do cover crops too. So we had another opportunity to write for a special pot of EQIP money, and mine was the NWQI. It was called National Water Quality Initiative. Hunter had a pot of money we wrote for, which was the MRBI, the
Mississippi River Basin Initiative.
There you go. There's another.
All these acronyms.
I have a hard time spelling Mississippi, let alone.
We'll send the pop quiz out after this. If
Yeah.
you get 100%, we're gonna hire you.
Yeah, it's gonna be one. We'll have what the program and what the goal is, and we'll have all the acronyms on one side and draw the lines back and forth. So anyway, it just started mushrooming and growing from there. We had, and then with their CSP program, the next people that re-enrolled, they had to do more acres. They had to do a multi-species, and then Hunter got the full WQI project, and the state of Iowa put more money into that. Then they really targeted the watersheds like Hunter's and the Turkey River watershed, and lo and behold, we started rolling in these acres, and probably I'd say 4 years ago, I had about 20% of my row crop acres. So my watershed's 22,000 acres. We got 17,000 acres tillable. Of that, there's about 1,600 acres or so that are in CRP, a long-term tenure program. Um, so we had this remaining about just under 15,000 acres. So anyway, we got 20% of those in it. I'm like, wow, that is so cool. And then the next year, 3 years ago, we got it up to 33%. Well, then here comes Hunter comes along and nominates me for a watershed state award. And I think at the time it was written, you said it was like 25% or something, 20 something.
The award landed in between years.
Yeah,
So we
so-
hadn't quite got to that
Yep.
33, but
So he had written it for what we had done that fall, and you get the award in the spring.
Yeah.
So I'm up at the podium receiving this award, and I said, "Well, actually, we're up to 33%." I mean, the whole auditorium,
just hear
just started.
gasping.
Yeah, they're just like, "What?" And so then last year, we got back on the conservation cover crop wagon train, and I was up to 43.5%. So then I had people waiting in line. I mean, the EQIP program is fantastic funding, but you gotta wait in line. You gotta wait. It's a long process. It's about a year-long process. So we're taking applications now for the fall of 2023, and I had like 20 people waiting on this list, and they're willing to do it tomorrow, and but there's still farming's expensive. It's expensive. There's some good dividends in commodity prices and things, but still, there's a lot of risk, and you still got to get kind of try to cushion that risk and the adaptability for farmers to convert into a whole new way of thinking about how they treat their land after the crop's not there. They're excellent. They've got this dialed in to raise awesome yields, keep their fields clean, get the good equipment. But so this was kind of new. So we got another. So I had these people wait on list. So a couple months ago, I got to thinking I'm gonna go to my agency sponsors in Des Moines and say, hey, I've got 2,000 acres of people waiting in line. They're willing to plant the crop now, and we've got money sitting here. Let's get this stuff going. And Hunter and I, we always got to go shoot past the goals, and ended up I found 3,000 acres of extra land here in the Howard County. So as of now, we're over 55% of the Silver Creek watershed is going to have cover crops, and it's going on primarily by plain, and probably I'd say over 85% goes on by plain. Some do some drilling where they take silage off. That's going to be early enough. They're going to get in and drill that in. Some years we're early enough in soybeans. That's kind of the flex area. If it's an early season, because we want to get this stuff, try to get it growing. And honestly, the best seed to soil contact is drilling it on.
Yep.
But we live in northern Iowa. We're a little closer to the North Pole in some places, and especially in January. And so we've got a drone that's going to be flying some on. They're going to be doing some brassica mixes with radish and things. But it's just going like gangbusters. We were out at the airport just the other day, Hunter and I, and it's kind of neat. Our office is very close to the airport, so we hear the planes. We know when we know when they've switched from fungicide application, and then there's a little lull, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of action out at the Cresco Airport and the airport in Osage and New Hampton also. But yeah, it's going over super well. Huge acceptance by our farmers. We're gonna definitely get some drones in the air and get some pictures this spring. Just driving through the watershed, it's so noticeable. I mean, when you've got close to 60% of the land. I mean, I know a couple years ago people were like, "What are people planting all these oats for?" It's like, "Was the price for hay really good?"
Golf course
And
going up.
yeah, I mean, it's so awesome, and it's such it's just been this whole soil health thing with NRCS and the emphasis on soil structure and reduced tillage and having that green plant and root, having live system year round. I mean, so when we fly this stuff on, that's when the plants are shutting down. Obviously, you go out there, it's perfect timing. We dropped that seed by the airplane. Now the leaves are falling off, lets the light get down to it. We get a nice shower here in the next day or two, and that stuff germinates. But to have that live root and live plant and that cover year round, it's just fabulous. I mean, I couldn't be more proud of the people in my watershed, and they're so supportive. You talk about supportive commissioners on our end. You go out and I come in the yard and they're like, "What do you got for me to sign today?" You know, Hunter's got the same reputation. We come out there, we got a handful of applications with all our sign stickers on them, and it's just fun to drive in the yard and visit about them. And it's like, hey, you know, you got this field over here. Or, you know, I know we didn't plan on doing cover crops on here, but you know, honestly, we got this kind of innovative deal with this drone. You know, we've got several people that have these drones now, and then that kind of piques their interest too. So you want to be on the cutting edge, right? There's a lot of salesmanship skills you got to work on this, but Hunter, he's seen me in action. He's carbon copy of it. He's got this dialed into. He knows it's about service. It's about servicing those people. And they know when we come out. I mean, we're signing applications for stuff that may not be come to fruition for a year or two.
Or more.
I mean, you got to have that trust, and you know, we've built that trust over the years. But like I always say, no crime, no foul, no error in signing an application. We can always, you know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if you don't have that application in the hopper, you're out of luck, because the EQIP program especially, once in a while they'll have a follow-up sign up in case like they had a really low year of applications and they have a lot of money. And this this whole idea of when money comes out. Here we didn't even talk about the pilot program we got last year. We're talking about our watershed projects. So that, you know, that kind of prioritizes. We get these special pots of money for the people in our watersheds. Well, here came last December,
4 counties.
and there were only 4 counties in Iowa. They had about $2.5 million worth, $3 million, and it was all going to be for cover crop. And it was the enhanced rate, like what you would get in a special watershed, for the entire county. So here we had all these applications in our drawer that hadn't been picked up yet. And we got to work, and I think we had over $1 million. It was over $1 million we obligated in January, and we picked up all these other farms around the county, in the western part of the county, southern part of the county, northern part of the county, that aren't currently in a watershed. And you know, so obviously the state knew we had a lot of applications in the drawer, or else they wouldn't have asked us to participate in that pilot program. And but man, you know, doing our homework, getting some of that footwork done, and you know, the prep work, so that when the money does come, we had everything lined up. We had the farms lined up, applications were eligible, and so right there, that took us up to a whole nother level here in the county. I mean, when the dust is settled and the seed is settled, we'll get the total numbers on everything. We got a pretty good handle on what our acres are for just within our watersheds. Which, by the way, mine's 22,000 acres. Hunter's is 66,000 acres. So we'll have some really good numbers to show you at the end of the month.
We're both. I mean, Neil's on. I mean, if you guys are big into graphs or numbers and stuff like that, I mean, honestly, we're on exponential growth right now. And Neil's, I mean, at some point it plateaus a little bit. I mean, it's never just going to keep on going through the roof over 100%. But right now we're on that bandwagon effect, that growth going straight up, and you got to stay on it, I think. And you can't really let go. It's kind of like when you refer to sports, when you get your foot down on someone's throat, you don't let it off. Yep. And we're not on someone's throat, but
I got these extra 3,000 acres, and I was getting to the point, I had like 44 acres left, and it was the day before the commissioner meeting, and it had to be approved on Wednesday, and I'm like racking my brain, who can we call? And I'm like, it's just like a light bulb comes on. And I knew I talked to one farmer, and he had put almost all of his farms, and there was 2 or 3 that he hadn't yet for whatever reason. So I got on the phone and did my little salesmanship skill thing. I was like, man, you want to be on this cutting edge and try out this drone? And he said, absolutely, we'll do it too. So anyway, I got all 3,000 acres accounted for and contracted out. So we're very excited about that too. So, well, if we can get some video up there, I think that would be pretty cool to get a video of these drones, because that's another thing. Who would ever thought drones were going to be flying cover crops 10 years ago?
Absolutely.
So.
I mean, you can talk about numbers till your face is blue, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to grasp. Sometimes unless you get a paper and pen in front of you, and you can write down and really understand what we're saying and what we're trying to get across. But when you can see a physical picture of the cover crop, you can see the planes going. I mean, even like yesterday, we were out at the airport, and one of the companies out there invested over $80,000 to try to improve their filling station as far as putting more seed in, more airplane fuel, and that sort of thing. And they're not even from the community; they're down from Parkersburg, Applington area. They've been up here for over 10 years seeding cover crops for some guys, and they finally just made the decision, if we're going to be doing this many acres, we need to be a little bit more adaptable and be able to do it with a little more ease. And so they approached our city council, the FFA, the airport association, worked with local contractors, and invested over $80,000 in concrete and rock to make it a little more accessible and easier for their operation to keep this process going, and be able to speed things up, because it really is a timing thing. Um, this can't be a month.
It's not quite Chicago O'Hare yet,
Yeah.
but we had heard rumors that they were going to do some improvements out there, but we're busy getting the applications and getting these contracts going, and so we went out there and we were like sitting there watching the planes, and I was like, "You think we should just go over there and talk to them?" And sure, we get over there and we're like, "What on earth?"
Yeah.
And we were kind of like celebrities. They're like, "You got to talk to this guy. You got to talk to this guy. We want to talk to these people that are like, how is Howard County doing this?" But man, and then they started explaining what they had done. They poured concrete, so they got these roundabouts out there. So the day we were out there, they had 3 planes flying. One company had 2 planes and a third one. And they had 2 loading stations. They had a fueling station. And sometimes you had all 3 planes on the ground at the same time. 2 were filling with seed, and the other one was getting refueled, and they're just taking off. And it's like, depending on how far out they went. Honestly, I was so amazed that one of those planes can hold over 4,600 pounds, over 2 tons of seed. And I'm thinking in my mind, oh, they're 200-300 pounds, and no, they're out there. So if they put 4,500 pounds in, we put 45 pounds of cereal rye on an acre. I mean, there's 100 acres they can in one swoop, and they're not gone very long. I mean,
Yeah.
we're standing there, and you could just chat a little bit and hear that you can see them coming back in. And but that is a tremendous testament. I was just telling Hunter, I was like, I'm not real big on writing letters to the editor type thing, but I don't think people understand. I mean, here we're involved in it, and we didn't realize that there was this cooperation between the city and this outside investor, and they're going to work to put some more improvements out there. They want to put a permanent fuel station out there for jet fuel, and some watering systems and stuff. But man, that's so awesome. The amount of, well, we were talking about, we're kind of unassuming. We got a beautiful little building. It sits here behind this farm and home, and you drive the main drag in Cresco, you don't really notice back here, but we're quite an economic stimulus for the community. And what does a farmer do when they have money? They got to spend it. I mean, that's just how the system's set up. That money that we're bringing in pays for the seed, it's paying for the ply, but it's also helping Main Street and the businesses here. You got to buy trucks, you got to buy, and then you got to put buildings up, materials. So, we've created this extra synergy of energy within the community, the ag community especially. But it has, it's the contractors, talking about, waterways. Well, that'll be another topic for another day. But, if we add up all the amount of cost share and all the amount of investments, incentives, and things like that, I mean, it's multi-million dollars. And FSA has their programs and their multi-million dollar program. I mean, it's big business. But we have all this money. The public has deemed that having improved water quality, improving wildlife habitat, and conserving soil is important. And so we got to be efficient and frugal in how we spend the money. But that's our job, is to make sure it's targeted in the right places. And we've got these people doing amazing things. And so yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I just got to mention one kind of story. I mean, like I said, we can always talk about the benefits and stuff like that, but I would say last year was one of those like oh wow moments. Around that Labor Day time frame, we had a rain event. It was roughly about 5 to 6 inches. It varied across the county, in the watershed area, and um, normally with that amount of rain, we would see some pretty significant flood damage. And it just didn't seem like it was really that bad. We were out water sampling 2 days later, had basically normal flows. We were having the clear water like we normally have. It was kind of eye opening for a moment. I was like, wow, this is whatever we're doing. It's working. But granted, yes, we're at the top of the watershed. Maybe it just went through us quick, flash flood, and we didn't really notice it that much. Maybe it was just something we didn't quite figure out. Well, about a month later, we were down in Postville at Northeast Iowa RC&D meeting, and this subject came up, and the guy was talking about how they weren't eligible for FEMA funds as far as disaster payment and stuff. They were only assessed at like 3 point some $1 million worth of damage, and they had to have over five to qualify for FEMA disaster payment. Unfortunate, yeah, I didn't get it. But the other side is that we didn't have that kind of damage through the whole watershed, the Turkey River watershed. And it's really a testament to the farmers and the landowners and what we're doing up on the land from top all the way to the bottom as far as getting that water infiltrated, holding on to that water, keeping our clean water clean, and even the dirty water that is running off. We got those buffers on the edge, we got the riparians, we got all that stuff in place as much as we can, or where we're standing right now, and we were able to kind of endure and get through that pretty good rain event and not have that sort of damage. And so it really was kind of an oh wow moment for me, saying, hey, whatever is going on in the watershed is working. And so we're starting to see a little bit more of that. And I mean, a lot of times what we do isn't necessarily direct flood mitigation, but it has those secondary, tertiary benefits that
Yeah.
really come back and start to go, oh wow.
Cover crop is one of those practices that has multiple positive effects on the land. First and foremost, the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy, and that's the whole reason the WQI system was set up. That's the reason Hunter's got a watershed project. We're trying to reduce those nutrients getting to the streams and eventually going down the Mississippi and ending up in the Gulf of Mexico, and adding to the hypoxia issue they have. So what our deal is we want to keep those nutrients here. I mean, farmers have paid money for this fertilizer. Your plant is only going to use so much during the growing season, and we usually put a little extra on just to make sure that we don't run out of fuel for our crops putting yield on. But so remember when we were talking about if we only had this short growing season, the rest of the year that land just sets, well, that nitrogen is not going to just sit there. It's going to leach through the system. So we get the fall rains, you get the spring rains. That water is going through the profile of the soil. It's taking the nitrogen with it. With cover crop, it's those roots in the soil. It's the plant. It's pulling up that leftover nutrient, which the farmer's already paid for, and instead of letting it go down the tile line down to the creek and beyond, it's holding on to it. Because one of the neatest things, I was out on a farm where they had injected a manure, and they had put their cover crop on. Right over the injection line, the cover crop was probably 6 inches taller and was twice as green. So you know exactly what it's doing. It's holding on to that nutrient. So then in the spring, when you kill the plant, that nutrient is held up in the biomass, and as the season goes along and the plant material starts to deteriorate and being absorbed into the soil, it's releasing that nitrogen. It's kind of like getting a consistent side dressing of your crop during the year. So that's one of the big, huge things. The other thing is obviously the soil, holding onto the soil. It adds for habitat. I mean, we're going to see turkeys out there eating on it. We're going to see deer eating on it. Especially we've got these mixes with the radishes and
We got
turnips.
some of these
Oh
guys
man,
that are going with the drone. They either got small fields, they want to go to a non-winter hardy, whatever the reason may be. And actually, there's one farmer in particular. I won't mention any names because he might have a line of deer hunters standing out there this fall. But he's got about 500 acres of cover crops that he's doing, and he's doing all radishes. we've never done this before, so we're gonna see how it goes.
We'll probably be attracting every turkey and pheasant and deer from counties away.
And then
But
come the spring, once
yeah.
it starts fermenting and dying off, there's not going to be anyone that wants to be within 5 square miles of
But
it because of the smell of
yeah,
it.
I mean, honestly, and and just to touch on the soil health aspect and having that year round. I mean, what we're trying to do is mimic what naturally would be there. Now, in nature, are you naturally going to have only 4 months of the year with something growing? You got something growing all the time, and we've got animal species here living all the time. So if they've got just, I mean, they can eat the leftover grain that might have fallen in the field. But you add that live material out there, especially the radishes and stuff. I mean, we've been putting radish and turnips in food plots for years, and now we're adding that. So that's kind of cool because, like the drone, obviously their capacity is like 50 to 60 pounds at a time. So if we just do a brassica mix, which is very small seed, and we're only putting 4 to 6 pounds per acre on, that drone is able to do that. Now, if we're going to do a mix, or you want to do radish or something with the airplane, we obviously can't just be putting 6 pounds. It would just go, it'd be gone. So we actually mix it with about half rate of oats or rye, and it helps as a carrier to take it down. But that's a cool. Hunter and I were on a tour of a watershed project over in Winship County, and they call it the Magnificent Seven
Oh, yeah, 7
mix.
species.
7 species in one mix, and talk about a tossed salad for habitat for deer and rabbits and whatever to eat. But it was just so cool. They had, I can't even list all the stuff they had, but they had radish, turnips. They had some vetch. They had some clover, crimson clover, red clover. I mean, and it was probably, this is like a month ago, and it's probably like 4 or 5 inches tall in the cornfield. But what is so cool, and we had one of the farmers talking about it. He had some pictures of going through with his combine head, and behind him, you could see the stalks sticking out, and here was this carpet of green, which I told him, I said, "There's your visual. That's the fertilizer that you paid for this spring or booked last fall is now held up and is holding on your land, and we're going to be using that for your crop next year." It's just a win-win.
I think one of the biggest visuals that I've ever taken a part of, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen, is the rainfall simulator that NRCS has, and showing the runoff and the infiltration and stuff. But breaking it down even so simple, you guys have all seen what an atomic bomb looks like when it hits and it's got the mushroom cloud and everything disperses. When a raindrop hits the soil, it does the exact same thing. And depending on how healthy that soil is going to depend on how many particles go dispersing or explode per se. And so if you can put some sort of a cover on top, even if it's one blade of grass or a whole carpet of grass, that's going to reduce that explosion per se of that atomic bomb or that raindrop hitting. And so the first time I ever seen that rainfall simulator, it absolutely blew my mind. And now when you try to implement it in whole fields, and you can truly see that it's working, you can see the rivers being cleaner, you can see that soil sticking up. You can look on the other side of the fence line on a guy who's been doing cover crop and no-till for long term, and the guy right on the other side of the fence line who's been plowing it up since 1944, and their fence line is 3 foot lower. I mean, glaciers didn't carve out 3 foot right on the fence line.
No.
It's pretty adamant, and it can show that it works and that it is holding your soil in place. And so
But
that's a great benefit.
that description of how that explosion happens on the soil, what it's doing is it's like a shock absorber. So the most vulnerable time for soil in Iowa is May, June, when there's been some tillage done. Even if you're no tilling, you go out in that, you're still going to have probably 10 to 20% of that field is going to be disturbed. But in between the row, if you can have some residue from the year before, you've got this dying cover crop, and it's just like a shock absorber. And so that's the most vulnerable time for our soil. And I had a producer gave me a call. I think it was, I can't remember, either last week of May, first part of June. Crops were, corn is like 3 inches tall and all this. And we had one of these wonderful 3.5 inches of rain in 20 minutes. And I'm just like, oh man, here's job security. We're going to be building waterways again this fall, which is still good. And we're getting these waterways in. Not good that we got gullies. But I had a farmer call me about 9 o'clock that evening. And he says, "You got to come out." I was like, "What's wrong?" And it's like, you got to come out and see my fields. He had, he's doing hundreds of acres of cover crop. He's no-tilling. He's been doing this for years. And he said, I can't find one area of erosion on my farm. I mean, I remember as a kid, and we didn't have that many huge rains like that. But I remember one time we had a 5-inch rain, and you'd go out and you would just see all the veins up into the field. It's like this mini watershed of streams, and you got these gullies, and you got this chocolate milk water running down the ditches, and you've got all the sediment filling up the culverts and everything else. And now, we're able to hold that. And he was so proud of that. And we went out there. Heck, we could drive right through his field with his side by side the next day after a 4-inch rain. We weren't even bringing mud up on the tires. Yeah. We were just driving through, which, part of that infiltration, creating that soil structure, which once again, that could be a whole new podcast, is just to do soil structure and how, what Ray Archuleta, Google him if you want to talk to someone. You wonder why we've got this energy and this spark. You watch Ray Archuleta, and I actually one time I had heard him, and I was like, "Wow, this is like, I mean, why are we not thinking this way?" So anyway, Hunter and I, we went to I saw he was going to be speaking at a conference up in Gustavus College up in Minnesota, and they're like, "What are you going all the way up there?" I said, "Hunter, you got to see this guy." And there was I think it was like a 3-day conference all about soil health and trying to get back to how how we should be farming. We should be farming in harmony with the environment. I mean, I'm a far cry from an environmentalist, but farmers are the first conservationists. They're conserving their land, and farmers live out there. That's their livelihood. It's like their factory. They want to be good stewards. And so this is just one more piece of that puzzle. That puzzle's got a lot of pieces that are practices, they're waterways, buffer strips, tillage, nutrients. There's just a lot of stuff there. But this whole revolution, the green revolution of cover crops, is just tremendous, and it's just spinning, and it's like centrifugal force. Now we've got people coming in. Hey, I see my neighbors flying on cover crops, so I'd like to do that. Can I try that next year? I said, absolutely. We'll sign you up. Got an application for you.
Absolutely. So, we're coming up on an hour here, and with the first one we were kind of planning on keeping short, but you can see that did happen. We could go for another 10 hours if we have to, but that's kind of the objective of what we were trying to get at here at Beyond the Dirt, and we just kind of came up with that name because we want to get beyond the dirt and talk about so much more. And I mean, obviously we alluded to how many different ideas and projects and components that we want to talk about in future podcasts. But if you get a hold and listen to this, let us know what you like, don't like. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on. And we're just going to keep on putting some content out there, hopefully give you guys an insight on whether it's program deadlines or projects or whatever it may be. Let us know what you want to hear. Let us know what you like, don't like. We're just going to keep spitting it out here. So we're going to sign off here. We got to head out to Lake Hendricks for a environmental studies class tour and keep on plugging away. So thanks for listening, guys. This is the first episode of Beyond the Dirt.